Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Charmed season finale, a great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're picking up with Macy trying to find basically this particular fungus or whatever that could be used as a way of kind of being almost like a cure to the Whispering Evil. I didn't expect it to track her down like that, which I thought was so fascinating. Cause I was like, oh, cause even then I was like, she was not on the list of people. Cause I guess for whatever reason in my head, I thought like, oh, witches were going to be immune, but it's like, well, obviously they're not, considering, Maggie literally got infected last episode. And I mean, granted, we know in the future she got infected and that's why she ended up dying, but it just never crossed my mind. Like, I thought the Whispering Evil would have gone for, like, an actual mortal being. So, like, that's why, like, at the top of my list after last episode was, like, Harry. But Macy getting infected was kind of surprised. But even it going, like, oh, like, this is the future. And I'm like, how would it know that? But it's like, right. It was in Jordan's body when they filled Jordan in about everything. So they probably told they probably inadvertently ended up telling the Whispering Evil the future of like, right, this thing ended up taking control of Macy, which in retrospect, I didn't realize that's what that was. Because I think in my head, I was just thinking like, oh, she was infected. But it's like, no, I think what it was doing for Jordan is what it was doing for Macy. I think it straight up infected her in the future. Like, I don't think, maybe they made that clear. It didn't come across in my head. Or maybe she was just infected and I am just reading too much into it. But for him to say that makes it seem like it's like, nah, like, you were mine in the future and now you're mine here. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a certain regard. But she has this antidote and she's able to kill the Whispering Evil. I was like, oh. But at first I was like, no, there's no way she actually killed it. I was like, but we did see the sigil, and I was like, maybe it is dead. I was like, no, most likely, like, it's some part of it still inside of her, and the entire episode she's going to spend it trying to fight it off, like, from fully controlling her. And it's like, no, like, she's in a weakened state afterwards, and she was only barely able to get through the portal. Harry finds her, and obviously everyone's rallying together, like, we got to do something, like, Macy's dying. It's like, at first it's like, right, this particular thing she took, this antidote, there's no cure for it. So, but Harry's immediately like, right, it's a magical solution, what she did. So it needs a magical healing, which would be a white lighter, because a white lighter's power can heal anything that is born from like, something magical. So like he believes like that's going to be the only thing that can cure her. So he had to go to Celeste and become a white lighter again. He doesn't care. He'll pay any price, but he's not going to let Macy die. So Mel and Maggie are using a spell to like connect to Macy and like connect their lifelines. And so they're kind of, as a reference, Maggie kind of makes Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, which I've not seen that movie in forever. I don't even know if I've ever seen it all the way through. And even if I had, like I said, it's been forever. I want to check that movie out. I know it's a really good movie just from what I remember of it, but it's been so long, I've forgotten so much about it. It's actually a really depressing movie in certain regards, but tangents and all that aside, they're inside her mind. Obviously, she doesn't know what's going on. And it ends up being this thing where, like, Macy, they kind of go through all the things that Macy, wishes she had done but hadn't. Like, for her, it's like being on that carousel with her sisters. Like, because, it's been a long time for Mel or Maggie, but for Macy, it was like the last time she was here, it was like her dad would take her every summer. She'd look around and it's like, right, she'd see mom, dads, and kids, and so she'd kind of want that. But it's like, she's like, oh, I'd imagine what it's like to have brothers and sisters. But Mel's like, yeah, but you're not alone. You got us. You got two sisters. And, it's like, yeah, I do. And Maggie over there sipping on the curly straw. She's like, these, they're pretty dope. And it's like, yeah, curly straws. And then immediately hard cut to them jumping out of a plane, because it's just those many experiences she never got to have. Then just getting to sit, relax with her sister and just do nothing. But then it is like, right, this is her on the verge of dying. That's where it started creeping in. Like, even before the clouds start showing up, you're like, this is her, like brain trying to, like, make her happy before the transition. because it is one of those things typically like, right, when you're supposedly, when you die, you know, your life flashes before your eyes. I think this is more so like give you an opportunity to do everything that you won't get an opportunity to do. But it's like, no, like, Macy, stay awake. Like, what else do you want to do? And she decides like, oh, let's go on a road trip together. It's like, oh, it's super sweet to see them on the road together. It's like, you know, it's these small things. It's just being the charm one's just living life. I think that's a beautiful in its own right life lesson from this episode. Don't take things for granted because you never know how much time you have. Like, you cherish the people you have around because you never know how long you're going to have them, you know? And, you know, I always say it in my messages at the end of the episodes, like, live life to the fullest and enjoy it, but I never really do that. But it's just, you know, yes, it's a TV show, but it's still a nice, stark reminder of, like, right, like, live every moment to the fullest because you don't know, you know, life is unpredictable like that. But at the same time, this is all happening. Harry is going to Celeste, and it's like, right, she can make him a white lighter again, but there's going to be issues. He has to die to become a white lighter, and it has to be by a mortal's hands. And then Jordan's just kind of looking like, wait, what? He's like, you guys have got to be crazy. He's like, Jordan, you're the only one. He's like, well, why don't you go out there and get hit by a car? He's like, for one, that would hurt. And then Celeste kind of nods her like, it would. And then two, who knows if I'd actually die. It's also an extra layer of messed up because let's not forget that's how Harry originally died in his OG life. So it's almost like that line was definitely written on purpose. But also it's like probably the easiest thing of just like just die by mortal hand. I mean, would that technically count? I mean, even if it was in a car, it'd still be by mortal hands because who's driving it. But also it's something born from man. You know, machinery and stuff like that, like cars, like it was something invented by man, so maybe it would count as, it still would count. So Jordan reluctantly accepts, like, all right, fine, I'll do this. It's just, once again, just the magic world always putting him in the most compromising positions. So, but you also have Celeste working on the most potent magic poison, the stillness, which I'm like, we're getting introduced to that, but I'm assuming that would come back up in some shape or form. And like, you don't just introduce one of the most powerful, I mean, it could end up being a one-off, but I definitely feel like that could definitely be something that rears its ugly head in some shape or form in the future. Like, it's a necessary thing. But yeah, one drop from it can kill anyone. And it's like, right. You know, Celeste is like, you know, this is a surefire thing. Like 90% of the time, it's like, wait, what? So what happens the other 10%? I guess the person just stays dead. Because another concern Jordan had previously, like, well, what about a dark light? It's like, well, I won't make the same mistake I made last time, splitting the darkness from the soul. It's like, no. Like, whereas Harry was, you know, Jimmy and Harry, now he's just going to be one person, like, which, you know, going to make him feel a lot more whole and complete, which is like, you know, so not splitting them up again this time. So he gets to stay whole this time. So, but even Jordan coming prepared, being like, right, you know, being a medic and everything, just, you know, a medic always got to come in this prepared. So, all right, let's get to it. Let's try this out. And they end up, it ends up activating, which is interesting too, because we saw a fraction of a white lighter being born, but we never got to see the full process. We saw, like, you know, a dark lighter being born and everything, but now we're seeing like the lights and everything as the energy surges throughout his body. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It looks like some like Dr. Manhattan level stuff, like the way it was kind of happening. But Harry doesn't wake up. It's like, oh boy. And with everything that was going down in Macy's mind, part of me was almost like, is that supposed to kind of work out like that? Is that kind of supposed to be like the tragicness of it, like that both of them end up dying or something? I was like, no, I can't play out like that, because it's like they go from road trip to the wedding, and I was like, that's, you know, that was sweet. Like, once again, just hitting these highlights. It's like, need something old, and it's like, oh, here's these earrings. You know, I've had them since I was a kid, and Mel had to be like, those are actually mine that I just gave up on getting back from you. So it's like, hey, it's something old and borrowed as well, but also something blue. And it's like, oh, the rings from when we got our powers back. It was charming. Like, you kept it too? She's like, of course I did. You know, it was a reminder of her bond with her sisters. And so the wedding happens. I love that, like, Ruby and Jordan are there, and it's just... And interesting enough, the person officiating it is the guardian. It's like, whoa, it's her again. And then it's like, right, she was the one that was in the middle of the road, but then also she was the pilot. So it's like, what's going on here? I was like, is she like, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, it did seem like, is she kind of supposed to be like the Reaper in this particular case of like, oh, like leading Macy towards the light? And at the wedding, immediately her cut to like, oh, like her and Harry having a baby. But then, like, the Guardian bringing her over, and you're like, oh, this isn't good. I was like, come on, Harry, show up in time, please, please, please. But then, like, she's with the Guardian, and then, like, they snap out of the spell, but then Harry shows up in time to heal her. It's like, okay, everything's going to be okay. Everything's got to be okay. Well, I skipped over a little bit, but after Celeste supercharged the defibrillator, they were able to luckily bring Harry back, but even when he tries to heal Macy, it's like, wait, it worked. Oh, okay, good. I was like, but is it going to be that simple? And sadly not. Because it wasn't even just the antidote she took that had an effect on her body. Killing destroying the Whispering Evil like that took its toll on her. Its destruction was like a nuclear bomb going off. So it affected her on a cellular level. Ironically enough, that's why, like, Harry had to die the way he did, because they wanted to make sure on a cellular level his body wasn't damaged, because they could have interfered with the process. So sad that, like, he ended up coming back, but, you know, Macy's in this state. But what I was bringing up before, I thought, like, maybe the wedding was actually both of their souls coming together. Like, oh, he didn't make it, and neither did she. And I was like, please. I mean, it's beautiful, but I was like, please don't make it kind of like that. There's another show, I won't spoil it, that kind of has a series finale that kind of involves something like that. If you've seen this show, I'm being super vague about it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it. But it's a show that aired on Sci-Fi. I will SYFY that Sci-Fi. It was a particular show that kind of had an ending where, like, oh, two dead people got together. It's beautiful, but it's also super sad at the same time. Like, I was wondering if it was going to be something like that. So. But Macy doesn't have much time. Like, it's like nothing anyone could have done, you know, nothing, you know, for her, it's just like, you can either keep fighting or you can hold me. Because you fight all you want, it can't, and it won't change anything. And Mel's like, no, we're not, we got to keep going. But I think Maggie, being the empath that she is, she felt it like, no, like, there's nothing we can do, like, you know. And so after Harry was able to say his goodbyes to Macy, it was time for Mel and Maggie, and despite everything, like, Mel didn't want to let her go. It's like, right, we'll do the lifeline spell again, and then we'll give you more time, but no matter of time, you know, it's never enough, you know. And for Macy, it's like sacrificing herself, like, it was all worth it in the end if it means giving both Mel's baby a future as well as everyone else, you know. And it's just like, and they brought it up like, right, it's like, no, we beat the destruction of the sisterhood. We beat it, and it's like, you know, it still ended up fulfilling itself because Macy's dying, you know. And for her, it's like, this isn't the end. Like, I'm not just going to disappear. Like, don't just think it as a death. Like, I will always be with you. And it seems like, I thought it was setting up her necessarily to become like the next Guardian, but I guess it's like, right, her becoming a part of that tree and just being like, I'm here. I'm always going to be a part of this energy. Part of that sisterhood, part of the Charmed Ones. I think it's kind of what they were setting up. But I'm like, the entire time I'm sitting here being like, there's no way they're doing this. What? Because you know, once again, as someone who watched the original show, I'm like, I've brought it up countless times. The whole point of creating the half-sister storyline was a byproduct of this, like, in the sense of, like, right, like, there were behind-the-scenes reasons why they ended up killing the character Prue off. I'm not diving into that, just talking about the fact of the character of Prue was killed off. But I'm like, so you're already doing the half-sister storyline. I mean, once again, they remix it by making it, Mel is actually the half-sister because Macy and Maggie actually have the same dad. So there's that. But in that moment to be like, oh, dude, that's just, I was like, what? So you did the half-sister storyline, and you're doing the whole killing off one of the Charmed Ones storyline. You're still doing that? I'm like, I guess that's the point. Because also what's crazy too is, if I remember correctly, and do correct me if I'm wrong, like, wasn't it season 3 that Prue died? Because that was like the 2001 season, roughly speaking. So, like, yeah, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. I believe it, yeah, it was definitely a season 3, because Paige was with the original Charmed Ones for like 5 years, because the show ends after like its 8th season. So, so it's around, probably, the season was like 2000 to 2001, I believe. Yeah, that was like the 2000 to 2001 season. But I'm like, yeah, like, so I think they're doing an even deeper homage to that. And part of me is like, I've not read anything. Maybe I'll read up on it later on. But I'm curious, is it because Madeline, the actress who plays Macy, maybe she decided to leave the show and they kind of wanted to give her a goodbye. Or maybe this was always the plan that the show continued. They were always going to do this. Like, this was always something they planned. Maybe they were deciding whether they're going to do it sooner or... Once again, they're doing it season 3 where the original death in the original show happened. So it's like... But I also think it's interesting, too. She's getting more... Not fanfare, but, like, she's getting more of a farewell than Prue did. Because, like... And to be fair, it's been years since I've seen the original show. If I remember correctly, it's just like, yeah, Prue died at the end of one episode because, like, there was the whole, like, rewinding of time thing, and, like, she ended up dying, and there was no... And the next episode is like, yep, her death sucked. Because that was kind of a thing of, like, yeah, we gotta... Once again, behind-the-scenes stuff, not trying to drag up the past, just stating it as a fact, not going into, like, the drama or gossip about what it was. It is what it is, and... So the next episode is like, oh, Prue's dead, and they've just got to like deal with it. Like, her being able to actually fully say goodbye, because Prue, they never actually got to see Prue because their mom was like, oh, like, it was behind the scene excuses of like, all right, you don't get to see Prue. Like, Macy actually gets to say goodbye to everyone. It's an actual farewell, which I feel like Prue kind of had it was like a one-sided goodbye, like, everyone having to accept her being gone. This time it's like she's kind of accepted it, but also being able to say goodbye to her sisters, you know, and them sharing memories. Like, what solidified it even more, I'm like, is there still got to be something? It's like, nah. The moment they start flashing back to all their memories together as sisters, I was like, oh my God. The first time it's the Charm Ones first time meeting officially, then them as the Charm Ones, and then like them getting their powers back as the Charm. I'm like, dude, I can't believe they're doing this. This is wild. Because at first when she was like, I'm not going to die, I thought like, oh, right. You know, in this universe, elders were witches. So I was like, oh, are they setting her up to become like an elder or something like that? But I'm like, I don't know if that's even possible. Because like that whole process is probably long since dead. There's no way of doing whatever the case may be. I'm like, no, like, I think she's just going to be a part of that tree, just kind of like, probably like the essence of maybe like all past dead witches kind of like are there. It's kind of like their souls kind of live on in this after. It's just, I think maybe the reason why they didn't include their mom either in this was just because like adding Marisol would have just because I guess there's some resolution that came up last, Josefina kind of gave like Mel some like closure on her mom, like, oh, understanding like why her mom did what she did when it came to her family and everything. So I guess maybe they were setting that up to kind of give them closure on that part, and they didn't want it to be a thing of if Marisol's there too, like. Maybe they felt like maybe just scheduling situation could make it possible, or it could just be like a thing of, hey, like, we didn't want that, like, because it would have, maybe for them it would have overshadowed Macy's goodbye to a certain extent, like adding in their mom, because like, right, we've already kind of gone through like accepting getting to say goodbye to your mom. Once again, it also is interesting because earlier this season, like, Macy and Maggie got to see their mom. And then, like, Mel having last episode kind of being able to get some closure with her, about her mom. Like, I think that was that kind of wrapping that up to a certain extent. But, like, everything, even the wedding, like, everything that was inside of her head, like, because of the lifeline spell, she remembers. So even the wedding, she was beautiful. It was beautiful. Even if it wasn't real, it still was nice, you know? Hell, even her telling Harry to love again, it's like, wow, that sucks, because now it's a situation of, like, even if he were to die as a human, would he have been able to be with her? You know, being a charm one, being, like, her afterlife situation vastly different. I think that was something they kind of hinted to, like, in the original show, too, with Prue's death, but not even be able to be with her, you know? So Harry wants to stay behind, and, you know, Mel and Maggie come back to the house, and there's future Mel, which I'm like, that's a whole paradox situation in itself. Maybe before the timeline change, once again, it's also that thing of like, what is time travel like in this universe? Like, are they going with the like, oh, that future? Yeah, it's no longer your future, but it is mine. No, the way she was talking about it, it's kind of like, because the baby, like, I guess Mel set it up so that everything around her would change, but her circumstances of being pregnant, giving the baby to her past self. So, like, she seemed to be kind of in a paradoxical, like, thing of, like, she's, like, got, like, a time bubble protecting her. So she was able to get her baby back, because she's like, you guys have so much to look forward to. So it's a thing of her acknowledging, knowing what the original timeline was, and then also acknowledging, that you got stuff to look forward to. So for her to have that knowledge, she has to know both timelines, what originally was and what things have become now. So I wonder, like, was it a thing of, like, which that could be a complicated thing, too, of, like, right, you get two timelines in your head. We see, like, the effect that starts having on people. Like, they talk about that, and, like, what other series does that? Like, the whole two timelines thing. I'm trying to remember on the top of my head that, like, that becomes an issue remembering both timelines. I know, like, the shifting in timelines, like, leads to, like, massive headaches and nosebleeds in the 12 Monkeys series, but something else did that whole thing about, like, right, you can't have two timelines in your head because it's too much. I'm blanking. I feel like it's something Arrowverse related, but I just can't remember. I'm trying to remember. No, it's, was it Eureka that did that? I'm trying to remember which one, because that was a whole thing too, what was before and what was different now. That was a storyline in Eureka too. Regardless, I'm going on a tangent. I'm not going to remember it. If you have some vague notion of what the hell I'm thinking of, do let me know in the comments down below. But that's, you know, because it is a thing of, like, right, because Macy didn't die in her timeline, so now she's from a timeline where things did shift, and it's like, right, you know, even Maggie being like, please tell me it was worth it. I know you're going to lie to me, but just please. And it's like, at the very least, she was like, I'm not going to promise you that, but I'm going to say that there is still good ahead of you. It's, you know, I mean, that's rough, you know, and it's like, at the end of the day, Macy is the reason why everyone has a future. She saved the world by sacrificing herself, you know? You know, Mel and Ruby being there for each other, and Maggie having Jordan, and she has a cut on her hand. She's like, I don't want this to heal, because it's the last reminder I have. Macy, but Jordan's like, that will heal, and so will you. But if you need to feel, you know, the sadness, the regret, the, like, anger, like, you feel that, you know, it's like, you are the one who always makes other people feel better. I just wish I can make you feel better. And in that moment, unbeknownst to both of them, he heals her. So I don't think he died in that moment. Harry, like, came back. Maybe he did and instantly became a White Lighter, or they might be kind of making him a little bit like Paige, where Paige was half White Lighter, half witch, but maybe, like, instead of that, he's like half. I mean, because Jade was like that in season 1. She was half witch, half White Lighter. So, like, what if that's the same case in this regard of, like, oh, she's half. He's half human, half White Lighter, or maybe it's not even like a full White Lighter thing. Maybe there's some of that magic that ran off. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But obviously going back to check on Harry because he never came back, and he was just waiting because he wanted to be near Macy in some shape or form. So it's like, well, what do we do? Is the power of 3 gone? And then the Guardian appeared, just like, no. There's one out there. And I'm like, okay, so what storyline are we going with? Are we going with, oh, there's another, like, unbeknownst sibling? Are we going full, like, no, we're not even making it blood related. She's a powerful witch that's going to become like a sister. Once again, they did the half-sister storyline, so I'm like, do you make it so there is another sibling that none of them knew about, or you're just making it like, oh, there's a witch who's going to, like, become a part of this? I don't know what I'd like more. I think it'd be more interesting, just for me, since I think they already went through the struggles of, like, oh, we have a half-sister. It's still going to be the thing of, regardless, like, no, we can't find someone to replace our sister. It's not right. No, it's, you know, because that's going to be an issue of, like, right, you're not Macy. But, like, very similar to, like, spoilers for Sleepy Hollow, there being a new witness after Abby died. So maybe something in that same regard. Like, I think we get something similar to that. Like, I don't know if this show kind of almost being like, kind of like Sleepy Hollow, kind of like Once Upon a Time, being kind of like a sort of soft reboot. I don't know if they would necessarily even classify it as that. I think it's just like, no, it's not a soft reboot. It is just a pure continuation. But under what circumstances? Like, are we going to get someone that's like Paige, that's like half White Lighter, half witch? Kind of like Jade, which I'm like, we never found out where Jade was after all this. I'm like, well, the actress, Elise, I believe is her name, it's, you know, did Leverage Redemption. She plays Hardys' sister, Brianna, which once again, I tripped out because I was like, oh, I would have never really, because it's been so long since we saw Jade, I was like, I never would have pieced that in my head that that was the same actress. Especially like her, like she looks so different when her hair especially when her hair styled so differently, like it just threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh wow, you almost don't look like the same person to me, but you know, that's just me being stupid. Because I'm also bummed too, because it's like, right, just when she got her demon powers back too, and I'm like, so I feel like you would need someone to kind of fit that mold of being something else too. I was like, you don't think, like, no, I don't think they do, like, I don't think they do the whole thing of, God, Abigail. I don't think they do that. It'd be interesting, but I don't think they do that. Like, set her up to be one. I think it's going to be a character we've never met before. Maybe it'll be someone we met, but I feel like it's going to be a brand new character, very much like Paige. But I'm curious what the circumstances are going to be. Hell, speaking of Abigail, I mean, granted, she was able to make up with Macy, so granted, you know, no bad blood there, but it's still kind of like that sucks. I'm sorry. Which now immediately your brain goes, the effed up thing in my brain goes, so does that mean we're setting up a potential Abigail and Harry thing can happen now? I mean, it's like, that was a complicated thing when Macy was alive. Like, there was already that love triangle thing there. It'd be mad disrespectful for that to become a thing, but if it did, I don't know. I'm just so curious to see where they're gonna take that. Like, you know, also, are we done with the Tomb of Chaos? Like, that was kind of like the main last threat, but like, obviously the Perfecti are still locked in there. Like, I don't know. I don't see anything else coming about that, but once again, there's also like, right, are the demons going to adhere to what Abigail said of like, right, if any demons cause you any problems, they're going to basically have to deal with me. Like, so it's the whole thing of like, whoever takes over, but like, if anyone comes after the charm ones, it's going to be an issue. But because I brought that up last episode, I didn't look into it because once again, I kind of didn't want to know, but was that the last time we're going to see Abigail in the series for a while? Or is it going to be a thing of that was just for the season, like eventually maybe she'll pop up next season? I don't know. Which, speaking of that, yes, Charmed is coming back for a 4th season, but I'm like, I'm so curious because it's so fascinating to be under these circumstances because I wasn't watching the show when this was originally playing out live with the original show, like after the whole thing with Prue and then eventually the situation with Paige. To anyone that's curious, like, I think I've talked about it before, but I didn't start watching Charmed until high school. So, like, 2005, 2006, like, basically when the show was, like, in its roughly around the time of its final season, whether it was, like, currently airing at the time, like, I would watch it at, like, 8 and 9 in the morning during the weekdays because it would syndicate on TNT. It still does. I don't know if it's the same time slots. TNT's like syndication time slots are like weird now, but it was like 8 and 9 in the morning and then like 4 and 5 in the afternoon. Sometimes I'd skip school because I'd watch like Angel back to back episodes of Angel 5 and 6, or no, 6 and 7, and then like Charmed at 8 and 9, and then like I'd come home and watch it 4 and 5 in the afternoon on the days I didn't skip school. So yeah, like, so I'm getting that like experience for the first time because, like, you know, I mean, to be fair, I experienced it the first time then, but it, like, I'm experiencing it live, whereas, like, before, it's like, nah, I can immediately watch the next episode when it syndicates, like, on TNT, because they would play those in sequential order, so, you know, with the syndication, so it's not like they'd be random episodes, like, no, the next, and, you know, you get what I'm trying to say, I'm rambling, but I'm like, it's so crazy. And I did look into it. It is at least the headlines I'm seeing is like, yeah, Madeline exits the show ahead of season 4. So it's like she probably made the decision to leave, and they kind of wrote the story around that. Like, I don't, or maybe it could be, whatever the case may be. Like, you know, I'm kind of bummed she's not going to be on the show anymore. But, you know, I mean, with her being kind of a spirit or whatever, she could always pop up if necessary. But I wish her the best of luck in all her future endeavors. I'm excited to see what she has planned next. But I'm also really excited to see where Charmed is going to take us with this. What new surprises await us? What new baddie? What new Charmed one? Obviously, with what we set up, we know at some point, you know, Mel's going to have a baby. But that's also going to be a conversation, too, of like, right, like, you know, when do I start? It's like, well, I was like 8 months pregnant, so that means I didn't start until later, but are you going to try and go sooner? Or are you just going to wait for things to happen? You know, what's Harry going to do? Like, losing the woman you love, now you're stuck with your immortality again. Like, what's going to happen there? Maggie and Jordan, and also Jordan's circumstance. There's a lot to kind of consider, potentially for what's going to go in the fourth season. At the time you're recording, it's like there are things like, oh, what you can expect from like the fourth season, like maybe there's articles and stuff like that, but I haven't read anything. Don't want to read anything. I kind of want to be surprised. Maybe I'll watch a trailer when one eventually drops. But I think a lot of stuff CW wise is kind of going back to its original fall schedule, obviously because of 2020. A lot of stuff like got pushed back heavily, but I think everything's kind of more in a position to be like starting up in the fall. It's kind of like fall 2021 is kind of where things are kind of starting up again, like typically if 2020 wasn't 2020. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm interested to see how this all plays out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. And the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.